All right. Good morning, YouTube. Says we're live. Rolling with a Monday. Thank goodness it's not Monday. Rolling with a morning chat. Get some coffee going, see what's going on, see who checks in, see what I missed all week, what I have overlooked and not accounted for. Pulling up the weather snapshot real quick. Looks like there's some pretty active storms going. We had some rain roll through here yesterday, Friday night. Wasn't bad. It looks like that's what's going through Utah about right now. So to have some more running through tonight, though. So just time to dry off and do it again. Lots of rain out there in Illinois, it looks like, and snow in Canada. Who knew? There's one of the fellows I follow on YouTube. He had a video of some tornado warnings before he went out and about. Looks some pretty ominous sky. I guess it was from the other day. It wasn't from yesterday. I'm not sure where he's at. Down south somewhere. It's like that's why I don't live where there's tornadoes. Hey, we got Walter Davis in here. Wes S. Good morning. What's up? Toxic Threads is probably staying out of the rain. Probably nothing else to do, considering what's on that radar right about now. So load up on coffee a little bit. Hang out. I liked your Alicia's video the other day you did dealing with the Godzilla toy. That was pretty funny. Yeah, that was pretty good. While we're on the Weather Channel here, though, if you didn't see the video yesterday, there was a that's on the front of the Weather Channel here. Cruise ship issued a mayday. Passengers were airlifted. Some of the video that came off this cruise ship from the crew, or the passengers, I should say, it was pretty Titanic-like. It's off the coast of Norway. Rough seas, 20 injured. Ship headed to port, but it had lost power. Let's see if we can find some of those. They were on Twitter. I don't know if they have them on the Weather Channel or not. But it's kind of just a glimpse in. Imagine what the Titanic was like. Here's a good one. Yeah, this is the one off Twitter that I think went around. Just gonna blow this up. Maybe not. Stop. Pause. Delay. Blow that up. It's like a slow motion earthquake in some respects when this thing starts listing back and forth. Can you imagine being told, hey, yeah, we got your evacuation coming, and this thing's bobbing around like this. This is how you get seasick. Right here. This is when everybody gets seasick. Going through something like that. There's talking about 20-foot seas, and when that ship's not under power and having to take it and just deal with it, you can't adjust for the waves and turn to go over them or maneuver with them. It gets pretty brutal, as you can see. Cruise ships aren't supposed to do that. That piano's just waiting to be a bludgeon on somebody. Speaking of being prepared, how do you be prepared on a ship? When you go on a vacation, you're on a cruise ship, supposed to provide everything for you until something like that happens. You know? And what do you do then? They don't let you have no real equipment with you. You get stuck at sea. It's got to be pretty cold up there, too. Get out of there. Hey, Tommy Boy 9, what's going on? how's things in your neck of the woods? We had just seen the well, it's not wanting to close. What's the problem here? Let's try. There we go. There we go. But that was some pretty interesting story there. Just things as simple as getting off a ship can be pretty complicated. Imagine trying to get a helo to get people off that thing when it's going back and forth like that. They had a 5 helicopter crew working to evacuate the passengers. And I guess they got the crew off as well. I guess it's anchored, but that could be if it breaks loose from that, it could be in bad shape. So I guess they anchored it and abandoned it. Is that how that works? Good times when you're going on your Viking Cruise Lines vacation. That ends up happening. Hey, LS, good morning. What's going on? Yeah, long time no see. Yeah. Like I said, I try to do some of these every now and then, but it definitely wasn't going to be regular like we had been having. It's good to see you got a real true Tar Heel fan, though, in the family. Today's the day. Sonny, where you are, Tommy boy? Wes S. Miss S says you don't get one. What? Oh, you don't get on one. Oh, got you. You don't get on a cruise ship, right? That's the best part. It's like getting on a plane, right? Once you're on there, you're stuck until they decide to carry out their mission or not. So you can only hope that everything goes all right until you get your destination, right? That's the bad things about things like that, where you're under somebody else's care. Pretty much you're at their mercy and their skill level until further notice. It looks like winter's hanging around in several parts of the country, not quite giving up. They still got a couple feet of snow up in the mountains around here. We got quite a bit of rain, so I don't have to water the trees this weekend because it's definitely tree watering weather, as warm as it's been. So you get to get started on all that fun stuff. Hey, Truth Freeze is with us. Good morning. How are you? Haven't seen, well, I've seen you in other chats, so I guess that counts, right? Here on the YouTube. It's amazing who you find lurking around in other chats all the time. It's like, oh, I didn't know you knew that channel. It's like everybody knows everybody. It's like YouTube's not as big as we thought it was. It's kind of like living in Nevada. It's like everybody knows everybody. But I think it just the prepping information community is a little smaller than we might think. Or we just frequent around all the channels as much as we can. LS is not going to be coming to live streams because she is busy and stuff. Hey, and stuff is important, right? It's on the Drudge today. Oh, it's all about. Is it still all about Mueller? Really? I reckon so. I figured they'd give up on this by now, considering they were told to give up on it a year ago, and still nothing came out of it. The laughable sideshow that it is finally came to an end. Yeah, some of the speaking of flooding there, floods, weapon. Yeah, that flooding out in Nebraska. Do they have any pictures here on the Drudge? You can Google that. But man, that Nebraska flooding was something fierce. We were talking about that during the drive Friday. We talked about that, just how the impact that could have on food stores and food prices and what's coming up this summer. Talking about farmers going out of business because they can't start back up. They can't afford the loans or anything else because they're just had so many problems in the past. They can't get going again. So what that 9 times out of 10 means is some corporation takes over and that pennies on a dollar as they wait them out and get them on a deal at an estate sale or whatever, the bankruptcy auction. Oh, here's just some good news. Weird world of vegan YouTube stars imploding. If you didn't know there were vegan YouTube stars, it's imploding. People are finally learning they're following Wes S's path to the long pork, probably. I don't see anything on those Nebraska pictures, but yeah, you can just Google Nebraska floods, and there's quite the imagery. It's going to be a long road for a lot of those folks getting back in the game if they can, or just getting their house back. Nebraska, not Nevada. I type in Nevada. You may be absent. LS may be absent. Is an excused absence though, right? It's an excused absence. Yeah, I think it's interesting. They're kind of blowing this flooding thing up, but I think one of the biggest instances of problems was where the dam broke. Right, that was the biggest problem. When the levees and dams don't break, you don't have much option. Which is the new normal in the Midwest. So this is going to take the end all be all climate change. Wasn't flooding always the case along rivers throughout history before man tamed the river and dammed it and started controlling all the water? Floodplain is called a floodplain for a reason, but they're great places to grow stuff for a reason, just like Egypt and the Nile. So they're talking about here, this article. And many levees and dams were overwhelmed. Yeah, that was the problem. I mean, when you hold those things back for so long, there's all that water that comes out at once. It's when it hits the wider area. If you just stay the natural floodplain, the historical floodplain, I guess you'd say, it's a little more predictable and everything. But when you hold it back and then it goes all at once and when a dam breaks, it's a lot worse. This doesn't have a lot of pictures to it. I was looking for some of the pictures and video. One picture. These days of all this information, they got one picture. Yeah, right. Truth. That's what we're talking about Friday. The stored grains and everything that was the future crops in that area are definitely going to be affecting. Here's another one. Let's see if this got video. This is 4 days ago. This will probably have it more so. Still a lot of high water. Wes S. What are we talking about? Any dirt, despite how small, will be held until the summer of next year. Then it will be leaked. What are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about the investigation thing, Wes? Like it really matters. I don't want to print. No, I don't want to save as a PDF either. How did that happen? Well, that was weird. Try this again. Food security in ways we need, right? Right, Truth. And it can all dovetail together. That's what we were talking about Friday, how everything just feeds upon each other. At some point, the SHTF gets bigger and bigger and spreads. Worst flooding in state's history in Nebraska there. And parts of the Midwest, that keeps getting missed. It seems like it's parts of the Midwest, not just Nebraska. But I don't know that I've seen many stats and images from other places in the Midwest on this deal. See if let's try images. Maybe that'd be the way to go. If I can get, there's that dam picture. That's the one. And Walter says if 100,000 people sign up, it has to go forward and ruin and investigate and ruin all involved. What's Walter talking about? Oh, the class action suit against Mueller. Was it you that started that video, Walter? Somebody put that, a Fuzz Fork, I think, put that video out there too. Somebody was talking about it in Rich 1911's video about a suit of some sort too, talking about tax fraud and stuff. I cannot find a good picture of this. That's even grainy. Because this picture where this dam broke is just that's the scary part. All these human built earthworks and stuff that when they go in places, kind of like we talked about the Oroville Dam a couple of years ago, things like that go. That's when it gets really bad. It's kind of like having a bathtub and letting the water run out the drain a little bit at a time. And instead, you just turn the bathtub over. It's all the same amount of water. It's just the amount and volume it comes out in makes a big difference in how it runs through an area. This might be a better picture. Barry Soetoro done us wrong. Pretty much every president's done us wrong. Well, AccuWeather says they have a picture, and I don't see the picture. The internet's getting hard to navigate lately, it seems like. Pull this over. This we'll end the flooding discussion in videos after this. I don't need a cat device. Visible flooding from outer space. Photos released by NASA. This video, let's blow this up. What if they got any decent audio? No audio, just different news music. They get a shot of that dam.
Even inside my apartment here, I could just hear the water rushing.
It's funny, we think of Nebraska as being like flat, but it's still above something. That water's going somewhere. Still got to get down to something. They didn't have the picture of the dam in there, but they had it on the thumbnail picture. The nuclear power plants was a concern. I know that who did we talk to with that? I think Brolance was concerned in his area about all the nuclear power stations that could potentially become overwhelmed. And this came up a couple years ago during like the Iowa floods or something, where one of them was surrounded, but this one is Nebraska emergency. This is Nebraska Emergency Management, the Cooper Nuclear Station near Brownville. This one faced a similar threat during 2011 from the Missouri River, bolstering the levee with sandbags and making other prep. That's pretty close. You look at how close that river is now flooded to that station. Like, that's not much of a what I'd call a fudge factor. That's not much buffer to protect that place from increasing. I mean, how much more water would it take to get over that levee? You can't really see from this distant picture. Yeah, that's no better. That wouldn't make me feel warm and fuzzy seeing that, and think about those things are littered across the Midwest there, and they're always near a river for easy water access. Does it flood other cooling pools as well? How does that work? What's the possible contamination issues? Not a good deal there. The other secondary effects of big floods like that. So there's the flooding, and talking about going all the way down to Louisiana, Arkansas. Didn't see a lot out of there on that though. Memphis. Looking at a long-lasting flooding event all along the Mississippi. So that's considered river flooding for the remainder of this past week. But they're also talking about flooding through at least April because of snow runoff and all the other weather-related events. And like we just saw, there's that other storm right on top of them right now. So they're getting more water when they don't need more water. That'd be something to follow if you're anywhere in that swath of area. We got lots of people in Missouri, I know. Illinois. Mule Team and everybody. All right, that'll be the last of it. I didn't find the picture of that dam, though. I don't know why. I'll pull it up where I found it over on the search image. It doesn't come out as well, but if you didn't see it, yeah, there it is. That right there is where all the water came from. Just totally overwhelmed this dam. Probably went around it, eroded it all down, and then just overwhelmed the rest, it looks like, too. That's total destruction. Like, you didn't think you'd ever see a dam destroyed that bad, but once it gets weakened in one point from the water rushing over or whatever, that's when it just goes downhill quick, I guess you'd say. Kind of like that Orville situation when it started going around and through the overflow. Something that hadn't been repaired in 50 years. Once thousands of gallons, well, really hundreds of thousands of gallons of water starts eroding stuff away, it doesn't take long under pressure. It's like replicating hundreds of thousands of years of erosion. This is the picture that I was just like, wow. It'd be interesting to hear somebody explain how it started. And you can see kind of the natural river channel, or the new natural river channel runs off through the left now. How it used to be, maybe a little bit different, but it looks like now it's the river set in this direction to the left. And all that water that was backed up behind it just goes downstream. Such as it is. catch back up in the chat here. Get my bearings here again. Everybody's talking about 3 different subjects, it looks like. What did I miss in the side chat? Oh, Wes S. is talking about Mueller still. Socialist Democratic Collective at work. Walter Davis talking about have to hold people unelected people accountable somehow. Miss B. Stacy is with us. Good morning. Tommy Boy 9 asks which meat is better. Is white or dark? Something like chicken. Yes, truth is absolutely astronomical. Livestock, grains, all of that is a concern. Like we were talking about it Friday, across the board, you can expect food prices, animal feed prices. So you're going to have all your grains affected, all your cattle, milk, beef, pigs, all those things that eat the soybeans and everything else that are grown in this region. Their feed prices go up. It's going to have a huge trickle down, potentially. Expected it, at least. LS, you have a good day. Thanks for checking in. Floodplain's going to flood, right, Midwest? Hey, how's it going, Midwest Prepper? Yeah, floodplains are going to flood. Cow pics drowning. No, I don't have any of that, and I'd rather not show it. There's enough misery in this world without highlighting it too much. There were tons of, there were pictures, though, of them just hauling out cattle by the dozen where they had washed downstream and frozen. They were just, because they were using excavators to pull them out where after it got cold after the fact or whatever, they're just frozen in place, basically in the mud. All right, see you later. Walter's talking to LS. All right, Matt, RT Resist the Tyrannies with us. Matt's starting a new series, or he's contemplating doing another series on concerned citizen gear. I like that concept. I like the title. This picture, or this whole thing's in Nebraska, what I was looking up, but apparently there's a lot of flooding in the Midwest overall to be concerned about. They broke the fishing hole, West, right? Right. Hey, Walter says the commodity traders push the prices. Well, they're speculating. They enter it, get speculation, and it spikes the price probably above where it would go for a bit at least, and then it comes back down a little bit. But they definitely take advantage of the disaster for their own profit, I guess you'd say. Somebody let me know when Rooster gets in here. Hey, Tyler, that's what's going on. Let's talk about Preppins in the house. Is Al Gore in here? I don't think Al Gore made it. There was a shooting in San Francisco last night. I was going to ask Rooster about if he shows up. Let me know. I'd like to know what area of the city of that gun-free city was harassed last night. Yes, Wes, that's probably true. There probably are frozen fish in the mud downstream, right? I doubt if all the fish made it unscathed, just because they stayed in the water, moving pretty fast. Might have got clubbed upside the head or something. So Paris protests continued this weekend. The big news out of that, though, is they deployed the military. And so now they went full-on totalitarian on them. And as Old Bag was telling us, was it a week and a half ago, last week, when I last did a chat, Old Bag was talking about them deploying soldiers from the EU into Britain for the possibilities of Brexit issues. And guess what? This week they announced they were going to delay Brexit, and now they're talking about May getting ousted as we speak. But anyway, this is article on Paris. They were arresting up to 70, and soldiers were deployed to prevent rioting. So things are quickly unraveling as the totalitarians battle the socialists. Because the bad thing is so many things of these protest grievances are about government benefits. They want this benefit. They want to return to, some of these nice handouts the government was giving out that were disappearing or whatever. Also, there was the tax issue. They felt like they've been overtaxed, but also there was a handout issue. And essentially you had socialists arguing with the totalitarians in some respects, unfortunately. But observing things unravel is a part of the exercise. Some of the demonstrators, so here they call them anti-government demonstrators, but are they really anti-government, or are they just, they want to return to sane government? I mean, which is it? I mean, I haven't heard anybody in the marches say they're anti-government. They want their government to act responsibly, et cetera, and they have grievances, but I haven't heard anybody say they just want to burn the whole place down, like some of us would like to do, but anyway. But they set fire to dustbins in the French capital, smashed shop windows, hurled stones. And that was in the northern city of Lille, as I would say it. They probably say Lille in French or something. But Lille is the way it's spelled. But the soldiers were in Paris, and the violence, I guess, went in the other northern city there. They say the violence was limited compared to the rampage in Paris last Saturday, when more than 100 shops, an exclusive restaurant, a bank, and newspaper kiosk were wrecked, looted, or set fire. Oh, so we missed all the action last Saturday. I had missed that there was that much activity or that big of an event last week. They're probably taking a pause, operational pause, to restock this week. They were tear gassing protesters in Paris, Lille, Lyon in East France, and Montpellier in the south. So it's countrywide. It's not just in the central city where the big protests are. It's all over. Protests were banned on the Champs-Élysées and in key areas of Nice. I think they say Nice. All these French-sounding words. I don't know. Toulouse and Bordeaux. So they are banning the protest in certain areas. So they rope them off in some fashion, I guess, block them off with the police forces and don't allow them to protest in those areas, which are the key economic areas that we would suppose, key historical areas. And so these literally nationwide protests are not slowing down. And what's funny is it's so rare to find a video of anybody getting interviewed by a news station as to what their concerns are. Usually the reporter's only asking them after the fact, like, you got tear gas, what happened? You got the police, cleared you out, what happened? They don't talk about, it doesn't seem like that very often you find an interview where they're talking about what are your grievances. They talked about that like months ago, but now it's like the grievances don't matter anymore. They don't even approach those things. They don't want to discuss them because, as they say, what's his name? Macron has to go. $6,000 police officers in Paris, which I think you would call that a standing army. The government views the potential escalation of civil unrest as a serious risk and vowed after last Saturday there would be zero tolerance for further violence or looting. Some 8,000 demonstrators took to the streets of French cities, according to the Interior Ministry, which they suggested marked a drop from last weekend when there were nearly 15,000. I don't know. Those protests look a lot bigger than 8,000 when you see them, but maybe it was this week was a lot smaller. So that's going down in the French Quarter. See how the people respond to the military presence. I haven't seen the killdozers deployed. We did see pictures of the killdozer a couple months ago in the French countryside. Somebody had made a makeshift tractor dozer, as we would call the killdozer from historical reference. But they were talking about the farmers bringing tractors into the city that never materialized. But if they feel they need the protection from the military, they might deploy something like that. If you remember that video or picture we had of that tractor, is all up armored, makeshift up armor, welded on and whatnot, out in the French countryside. Check back in on the side chat. Where's Billy Bird? I do not know, Tommy Boy. Yeah, Tyler, this happened last night right before I went to bed. I saw the Twitter and whatnot about it. It was just like 3-shot or something. I mean, significant, but I was just going to ask Rooster where it was at. It wasn't really, I don't know, probably just criminal nature of some sort, but I was just going to ask Rooster about it. Right, Matt. They have gun control. How could they be a shooting? I don't understand. San Francisco's a gun-free zone, right? Truth, French holding strong. The Farkas is with us. Good morning. How's it going? Tommy Boy says less beef means I can lose weight. No food, no fat. That's a good diet strategy you got there, Tommy Boy. High Pockets with us. Good morning. So when the Yellow Vests said people don't have enough money to last the month, it's because the government doesn't give them enough, or their bills and taxes are too much. Yeah, it's a big self-flicking ice cream cone over there at this point. I mean, the whole economic system is on its last leg. It's got to be. Everything relies on everything else so much. It relies on so many handouts, so much inflation, so much debt that it's got to be on its last leg. But I don't know. We continue to struggle on. But people's faith in the system is waning, as evidenced by some of this Paris activity. But how exactly it's working, where the people are getting taxed too much, they have to pay too much for gas, and it just makes a big circular problem where it just magnifies itself. They're selling Yellow Vest here for protests, says Tommy Boy. Hey, Third Option, good morning. They're putting more effort than here. Yeah, that's the truth. How's that flooding in your area, Third? It doesn't look like it's got to you, but you may be having flooding coming your way. I don't know. Looks like most of it's Illinois and west. Farkas can't leave without meat. The Farkas gets angry. Get rabbits, says Truth Freeze. Rabbits are quick means. Really, the easiest is chickens. Chickens are much easier. You get the eggs. There's your protein. Nice and easy. So moving on to the British situation. Oh, that's the wrong one. Theresa May's cabinet may be in revolt. This is via Zero Hedge. This was tied in with a couple of leaks, tweets, and other things that were coming out yesterday and the day before, I believe, Friday, at close of business. So they're tying into a Sunday Times article, which they link here, that quotes frantic series of private telephone calls. Senior ministers agreed the prime minister must announce she is standing down, warning that she has become a toxic and erratic figure whose judgment has gone haywire. There's no doubt about that. They've all drug their feet on this long enough. Pretty sure people are tired of it. Even the people who want to remain in the EU, I think, are tired of the wishy-washy actions of the government, which in some ways exposes their weaknesses and probably helps some people want to commit to leaving the EU because they're dragging their feet for the benefit of the EU in most of these cases. So the plotters within her administration apparently plan to confront May at a cabinet meeting on Sunday, which is today, which would be going down if it hasn't happened already. It's what, Sunday evening there, early Sunday evening, roughly what, 10 hours difference, something like that. Or we had an 8-hour difference. It's late Sunday there. They are going to confront her at a cabinet meeting and demand that she announce she is quitting. If she refuses, they will threaten mass resignations or publicly demand her head. The conspirators are locked in talks late on Saturday to try to reach a consensus deal on a new prime minister, which they've talked about this for months now, about replacing her. And there's been all kinds of, I guess, political gamesmanship on the whole thing. But they did announce last week that they were going to delay the Brexit for another month or so till May, which I'm surprised they didn't have a little low-level protest going on, at least about that. Or maybe it just got kept hush-hush. But there was a large contingent. Was it last weekend or was it this past week? Video of a large protest in London concerning the Brexit issue. I don't remember where I saw that. So, of course, when they try to take somebody out, the argument's going to be over who takes over, who's in charge next. And it's like they may be arguing over that a little bit. One cabinet minister said the end is nigh. She won't be prime minister in 10 days' time. Negotiations, discussions. Is there a bottom line to this whole thing? So something should be going down about right now. So there was a protest yesterday about Brexit. So the report of political revolt comes, ironically, just hours after hundreds of thousands of Britons poured into the streets of London demanding a second public vote. So that one was about a second vote. More delay and stall. There's a bird's eye view. So this is the video I saw, yeah. Calling for a new referendum. Supposedly. Is there any audio to this? I guess not. It's like a little drone action video in a march through the city. It'd be interesting to see old Bag check in, see what his take is on the whole thing. We got a few people across the pond there that check in every now and then. So apparently this was yesterday, and they were asking for a second vote because they didn't like the results of the first one. Let's have a do-over. But I'm kind of convinced that more people are more upset with their government now, and they would want them to leave even more so because they've seen the EU shenanigans that have gone on the past 2 years to delay and stall this thing for their own interest, and the EU economically is falling apart. All right, check. Hey, M. Long's with us. Kentucky is the biggest cattle producer east of the Mississippi. I did not know that. And where do they get their feed for their cattle primarily from, M. Long? I guess you grow a lot of hay probably in Kentucky. So that would be a big benefit for whatever to supplement their regular grass feed. There are so many things happening, says Tommy Boy. It's crazy out there, right? Yeah, that's part of the problem. It's hard to keep up with all the different stuff and see how it all ties together at some level. It could have, cross effects over because as the EU collapses, that's less of for strategic purposes, it's less of a check on the Russian front. And that means that the U.S. is going to get more and more antsy, I guess, about the whole thing. And you can't be doing that with Russia and Europe and then have to deal with China and Pacific. There's no way that on our current foreign policy, there's no way we can support it on both ends. And it's not this isn't World War II, and especially with the EU not pulling their weight, I guess you would say, it caused big problems for ourselves as well if we try to continue to execute our foreign policy the way we have the last 30, 40 years. To put it, that's the politically correct, definite explanation of some of that side effects, Tommy Boy. But you're exactly right. There's a lot going on. Hard to keep track. ZPD Survival's with us. Good morning. Russia. So here's the Brexit timeline. March 29th, UK Parliament votes on Theresa May's Brexit deal for a third time. May 22nd, UK leaves EU with a deal. By April 12th, UK decides it will hold a European Parliament elections on May 23rd. So there's March 29th is the next thing to go down, I guess. If they accept Theresa May's deal, they leave on May 22nd. If it's rejected, by April 12th, UK decides if it will hold a European Parliament election on May 23rd. If they accept that, EU decides if it will allow a long delay to Brexit. If they accept that, there's a new deal, no Brexit, new referendum, general election. If the EU rejects a long delay, UK leaves EU without a deal. Okay, if there's a rejection on the 29th, this is a nice flow chart. Helps me figure things out. April 12th, if the UK rejects elections on the 23rd, it leaves the EU without a deal. So let's just reject, leave without a deal. Sold. Let's do it. We have to wait until April 12th, but that's better than waiting until May 12th. It's better than going May 22nd and leaving it with Theresa May's deal, quote unquote, which is basically just a watered down trade modification from their current issues. That's a good flow chart. Thank you for putting that together. We're to AFP. So that's that's a good cartoon there for you. But that's the situation in the Brexit deal, I guess, such as it's falling apart. Time Boy says, just like NATO is surrounding Russia, their subs are all around surrounding the United States? ? Maybe. I wouldn't say NATO. Well, NATO tries to surround Russia, I guess you could say, with Turkey, but I don't know that Turkey is legitimately a part of NATO anymore. In name only, maybe. Not in actual actions or commitment. But yeah, the Russians could put their subs in lots of places. Tommy Boy says something has to blow up and spark all this off. It could, or it all could just be a precursor, just waiting for the economic situation to get bad enough that they have to start a war to fight over continued inflationary policies so that they can't expand their economies because they blame so many foreign actors for their current bad economic state that they're able to start a war. And I mean each of the leaders of all those countries, because they're all going to feel the side effects of any economic downturn here coming soon if we keep getting what we're getting on the radar here with the inverted bond yield this past week. Secondary effects of all that can only lead to war. NATO bombing of Serbia. Yeah, that was yesterday. It started yesterday, I believe. 1999. Tommy Boy's final collection will be of blue helmets. Food matters hashtag food matters. They need a device to detect how much they're putting in, how much stuff they're putting in the food, a GMO meter. All right. So moving over to the economic side, let's see. I think there was a couple things in on this. Victims, inflation. Yeah, the Zero Hedge had a lot of good links in articles they were putting out. So here's an op-ed that was in the Wall Street Journal, shared here on the Zero Hedge. Martin Feldstein. The most dangerous domestic problem facing America's federal government is the rapid growth of its budget deficit and national debt. Yeah, if you didn't catch it this past week, they announced that we had the largest monthly debt deficit. I guess it was in February, or maybe it was January. They announced the numbers. They announced them this past week from that month. They'll probably get into that here, but yeah, it was the largest recorded deficit of a monthly deficit ever. So that's not reassuring, as our $22 trillion debt continues to grow. I'll close this out. Close this. That doesn't want to close. That's the hardest thing with Zero Hedge. It's got so many video things they put up on the screen. See, according to the Congressional Budget Office, which they'll call the CBO here, the deficit this year will be $900 billion, almost $1 trillion in 1 year. More than 4% of gross domestic product. It will surpass $1 trillion in 2022. And that's just the federal government deficit. That's not any other level of government. All the other debt that's in the economy because of our financial system of fractional reserve banking, where all these made up dollars beget other fake dollars, 9-to-1 ratio. It just continues to feed the machine, and it's all made up in a computer. But the federal debt is now 78% of GDP. By 2028, is projected to be nearly 100% and still rising. All this will have serious economic consequences, as we have discussed, and the CBO understates the problem. Well, the CBO pretty much doesn't talk about problems. There's a bunch of number crunchers that, hey, here's the numbers. They don't ever analyze things, it doesn't seem like. They just say, here's the potential for future numbers. Future numbers could look like this unless this numbers change, and then here's what the numbers will look like on this end. They don't put any rational thought into it, I guess you'd say. And that is based upon projections and current law. In this case, the levels of spending and the future tax rules and rates that appear in law today. Those levels don't match realistic predictions, says the op-ed piece here. Current law projects that defense spending will decline as a share of GDP from a very low 3.1 to about 2.5 over the next 10 years. None of the military and civilian defense experts with whom I've spoken believe that will happen, given what they say here, quote unquote, America's global responsibilities and the need to modernize the U.S. military equipment, like it's not the most modern in the world already. I mean, other than robots and other than killer droids and stuff, like how much more modernized do we need? It is likelier that defense spending will stay around 3% of GDP or even increase in the coming decade. I mean, when was the last time military spending went down? 95 or 96 or something crazy like that? If the outlook for defense spending is increased, the Democratic House majority will insist that the non-defense discretionary spending should rise to match its trajectory, right? That's the only thing. It's all about compromise. It's like, we'll give you all the money you want. You just got to give us all the money we want. It's just like what happened with the American Affordable Care Act. Somebody gets paid off and somebody's little pet project gets funded and everything goes through and everybody's happy. As long as there's more money spent, DC does not care about reducing any debt or deficit because they don't have to pay the bill. They just ride the coattails, line their own pockets, and move on after they retire, and everybody's happy until it all falls apart at some point. So this is breaking down a lot of numbers and comparisons and percentages and whatnot. I'll try to fast forward through this a little bit, just focusing on CBO and discretionary spending. To avoid economic distress, the government either has to impose higher taxes or reduce future spending. Both of those situations will cause economic distress. If you impose higher taxes, that's going to cause problems. If you reduce future spending, you destroy the welfare state, and that welfare state includes defense spending in these days. That's going to cause problems. And reducing spending also takes away that cycle of fractional reserve banking where more dollars beget more dollars, which is necessary to keep it afloat, to keep the whole system afloat. But they go on here, since raising taxes weakens incentives and further slows economic growth, worsening the debt to GDP ratio, the better approach is to slow government spending. Defense spending and non-defense discretionary outlays can't be reduced below the unprecedented and dangerously low shares of GDP that CBO projects. Say what? Defense spending and non-defense discretionary outlays can't be reduced. Can't be reduced. So you're thinking like that, that's a red flag right there. Like, what do you mean can't be reduced? So they're saying that the CBO projection of 2.5% of GDP, as they talked about in the earlier paragraph, as a share of GDP, that we could never get that low. That's dangerous. And it's dangerous only because of fractional reserve banking and more dollars making more dollars. There's no other explanation for that. So here his conclusion is, thus the only option is to throw the brakes on entitlements. In particular, the government needs to hold back the growth of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, which Social Security supposedly was funded by people themselves, but apparently they wrap it up into entitlements, as we've all talked about multiple times. Don't ever plan on getting your Social Security. Federal spending on the two major health programs is projected to rise from its current 5.5% of GDP to more than 7.2% by 2029, and it will only keep increasing after that. The simplest approach is to raise the age availability for Social Security. Of course, we're all going to live forever. Kampai. Oh, man. This is going to go badly, isn't it? Lawmakers don't like to cut spending, but they have to do something. Yeah. Otherwise, the exploding national debt will be an increasing burden on our children, economic growth, and our future standard of living. But they have to do something, and doing something either way, doesn't it all logically go to a tragic end either way? That's the end, it looks like. Yeah, there's no escaping it. Even if you try to lower those spending, you can think about taking away the entitlements, the effect that has. And you can't pay down the debt because the debt destroys the debt. It's all debt based. Just a one big cascading effect, and that's why they never lowered the debt. But let me check in on the side chat here. There's another here on inflation we'll get into next. Let's see what the side chat's up to. Who we got checking in? I wish it told me how many people were in the side chat. It doesn't do that anymore. Google always messing with their products, their system. Alicia says, does anyone know if Turkey is actually going to join the EU? If so, what would that mean? Like I said, Alicia, I think Turkey is more likely to get out of NATO than it is to join the EU with Erdogan in charge there. I just don't see what's going on here. Close this. Close it. Okay, whatever. Is inflation beginning? Are you ready? Is the next. Truth's got a couple ideas there to check out about Turkey, right? Tommy Boy says he sees what's going on and has a gut feeling, so divided into 2 more ounces. Oh, you got 2 more ounces last night? Man, Tommy's doubling down. Making me feel bad. Killer droids, sweet. Right, Matt? Yeah, it'll be serious. We got Terminators roaming the street. We'll definitely be in the I don't know what to call it. May not be the end days, but it'll definitely be bad days. Time Boy's overspending just like the government. Hey, if they can do it, so can I. Yeah, but you're spending your debt notes, Tommy, that you earned, right? Like you can't spend more than what you got. The government spends what they don't have. They just make it out of thin air. It's just amazing why they do that. Wait, can we have a sensible budget? Says Truth Freeze. Not with a central bank using debt notes and fractional reserve banking. No, you cannot have a sensible budget because the budget has to spend more money than the year before to support the system. It's the nature of the system. That's what we don't get, and that's why Americans are so frustrated. They don't understand what system we've been led into and the problems that we have caused largely by that. And everybody wonders why can't DC balance their checkbook? Well, because they have a never-ending checkbook and a responsibility to keep the system afloat. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of funny how that works. All right, looks like we're about an hour in. I'm going to have to get some more coffee here if you guys want to hang tight for a second. And see if I can find a video or something to roll while I'm getting coffee or something. See what else is going down. Right, ZPD, nature of the beast. It is a debt economy, right? Debt has to beget more debt. And as sooner people realize that, the sooner we can get it over with and end it, I guess you'd say. In my mind, it's like sooner people realize that we're in a debt-based and that more debt has to take place, the sooner they'll be unwilling to participate. And the sooner this whole thing can fall apart, right? But people still have faith in the system, I guess you'd say. They have this irrational faith that somehow we're going to get out of this. Somehow we're going to beat this and lower the deficits and return to sanity and everything will be okay. Gregor Manarino did a really good video yesterday leading up to this, looking forward into this week about what's going on. You want to check that out probably. Oh, there's a rally at Oregon State Capitol again today. I know they had one yesterday. Oh, let's check out this live stream while I'm going to get more coffee. That's good timing. This is a channel I've been following for a while.
Even in spite of Oregon's clear constitutional provision, Senator Wagner and Representatives.
It's a channel I've been following since the Oregon days. He's up there. Thomas Lewis. So I'm going to go get some coffee. You guys check this out. Don't go nowhere. Come back. Get your own coffee. But we'll listen to this and
limit the purchase of firearms to one long gun and one handgun in a 30-day period with a permit, and require background checks on ammunition, limiting it to 20 rounds every 30 days. Fortunately, Senator Przansky has decided to stop that bill from being heard in committee. However, that doesn't mean the threat is over, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. SB 501 is one of many bills that have been introduced this session that seek to limit your ability to exercise your constitutional rights. You can find a complete listing of these bills on fpcaction.org, and I'm sure the NRA website has them as well. But what I'm certain of is, I'm certain that everybody here took the time to contact your senators to tell them to vote no on SB 501. However, I've had many conversations with people across the country that tell me that they don't have time to reach out and let their representatives or senators know how they feel about certain bills. And others just say that, I don't know what to do. How do I do it? Be it state or federal, the process is very easy. I always encourage people to just pick up the phone and call. Now, you heard from Representative Post earlier tell you that form letters he doesn't like. He likes them to be a little bit personal, and that's great. If you have the time and you have the know-how, do that. Most importantly, it can be done quickly. I posted pictures of my call logs where I've contacted all my representatives, and it's been under 5 minutes. I suggest storing their main office numbers in your phone. That way you can call on your way to or from work, during your lunch break, or whenever else is convenient for you. No matter what time works best for you, it's important that you take action. If you prefer a different method, again, websites like fpcaction.org and the NRA's website all have ways that you can contact your senators via electronic means, and your representatives as well. At the beginning of my remarks, I called you all advocates. But your advocacy does not stop here today with this rally. That's right. Once you guys depart Salem and you head home, there's more work to be done. There's more advocates to forge, and there's representatives to be contacted. The struggle to preserve our right to keep and bear arms never stops, nor should any of you. Thank you.
Route. He flew all the way here from Pennsylvania just to talk to you guys, so. See him, he's usually around that black tent over there. Say hi, don't ask him for legal advice, because he will charge you a lot. All right, so we're gonna have another speaker up here, probably about 15-20 minutes, so everyone just have a great time. As he brought up earlier, FPC, the Firearms Policy Coalition, they are fighting for you. They were actually just in court yesterday fighting. So hop onto their website, fpc.org, firearmspolicy.com. There's a whole bunch of different ways to get there, get involved, be active on there. They are seriously taking everything that you say, and they are truly fighting for your rights. So be sure to pay them some type of recognition. And I'm going to get down from here. Thank you. Enjoy the band. Never
I do. I think she wants to rock out. She screams like I did when I was about 21, but I can't do that anymore. Daddy, she wants to rock, man.
Bands are always good. Looks like they took a break about the same time we would. So it looks like I had a speaker that came from out of town. So I guess we'll leave that for a minute. So that's S. Thomas Lewis is this channel. Looks like he started his live stream about 47 minutes ago. He does all things Oregon. He does a lot of county community meetings, state rallies, liberty-minded stuff, some outdoor stuff. But yeah, I've followed him for quite a while now. So that's that going on up there in Oregon. I knew they had a rally yesterday. I didn't know it was continuing today. But there it is. All right. So I'm back with fresh coffee if you guys are ready. We'll roll on to the next. We'll see what the side chat's up to. See if we can find a new topic. We'll see what we got. The next is we talked through the inflation thing. No, inflation article was the next one, right? Lose track of my space in here. Let's see. Toxic says truth. I think once 2 countries in Europe fall to Islam, people will wake up. The question is, who will fall first? I don't know. I think Germany's in the lead for that. So we talked about that article with Uncle Sam. Close that one. I'll have to start closing things so I don't get confused. If I can close it. Whoa. And what's going on here? I'm glitching. Okay. You guys still got me? I think I got glitched out there for a second. See if there's anything current on the Twitter here. Christina Thompson has joined us. Good morning. How are you? Tommy Boy, watch this music shut the channel down. Hopefully not. Oh, really, Tyler? Tyler says you can sing anything you want. YouTube just recognizes the ones that are the same coding. Is that right? Farkas Mosh Pit. I guess I missed a song, huh? Oh, was that did they show a video of did they show some panning of the crowd? The crowd wasn't that big there in Oregon? Got it. Yeah, speaking of the gun thing, and we kind of hit on it Friday, but the nullification, in my words, the resolutions, in some people's words, of Nevada counties refusing to enforce the universal background check law that was passed here in Nevada. It's basically 15 counties to 2 now, which makes me think if I'm a gun dealer, a gun seller of some sort, I'm moving to one of those 15 counties. If you get all the gun sellers out of the 2 big counties, that'll make us in a big economic statement. But 2 counties followed suit this last week. Elko County and Lyon County passed a resolution to uphold people's rights to bear arms and not enforce unconstitutional background checks on the people. And their sheriffs joined the county's commissioners in those statements unanimously for effect. So that was some good. And you talk about the 20 people showing up. There were a lot more than 20 people at each of those county meetings, so that's a good sign. Which basically all the chambers were full, as you would say. I don't know if people were standing outside, but they were definitely full events going on with those issues. So that's good news on the Nevada front, at least. There's a united front, as small as it might seem. It's only, roughly 600,000 people, if it's even that many, compared to the 2.5 million that make up the Clark County and Washoe County resistance, I guess you'd say. Toxics. Alicia says London, yes. I think it'll take more than a city. You would need an entire country, probably 2. Yeah, that's interesting. Some of the London video, you have people getting arrested on the street for preaching out of a Bible, and then you have mass Islamic call to prayers on the street that have no effect. Obviously, that goes with, when you have the numbers, you have the power, right? If you could get couple hundred Christians out there preaching the word, maybe they would have a similar effect and not be persecuted as such. But as when it's one lone person standing by themselves, it's easy to have them picked up, arrested. It's easy to single them out and put them away. And let's see here. Nothing on the Twitter machine this morning that stands out as urgent breaking news. Third option is having tea with honey. That's always good, I guess. Yeah, Christina brings up the Missouri issue. Missouri passed a resolution nullifying, I think it nullifies any future federal gun laws. That was a good see out of Missouri, though. Matt says, don't underestimate small numbers of determined people. True enough. True enough. That's what the founders were, a small vocal minority, right? But that's always been the case, that the vocal, ever persistent minority is usually more effective than the masses who have no principles and just go with the flow and just continue on, day to day, I guess you'd say. But unfortunately, the small determined people numbers lie with the Islamists for the most part in a lot of these countries. They are much more determined and unified. Unification is definitely the issue. Most people in what we would call Western civilization don't unite under any sort of Christianity, regardless of form. Even the southern states have been broken down to this point to where people don't unify together under that auspices. That you figure that all got broken down back in the 60s. It hasn't gotten any better. Stan Ulch is with us, our resident Canadian. He's in the house. Is it snowing in your area, Stan? We saw some snowflakes falling up there on the weather. Christina says, old age and treachery will always outdo youth and enthusiasm. Twice in a Sunday, any day of the week. Well, if it's me, Matt, and third option, we got them cornered on old age and treachery. We bring Mule in. We've got them outflanked for sure. We'll let Tyler and some of these folks take the youth and enthusiasm side, though. We need some of those folks, too. Hey, Alicia, have a good day. Thanks for checking in. Good to see you. Oh, it stands in spring finally. All right. It may have been slightly to the east of you. It looked like it wasn't centered over Toronto. It was like further east. It looked like the snow was up there. All right. Next on the block here was an article on the Zero Hedge about inflation. My question was, when did inflation end? Granted, it seems to ebb and flow, but it seems to be continuous. But I think they're talking about a severe spike in inflation. So we'll see what they have to say here concerning the issue. But this is based upon M.N. Gordon. Economic Prism was the economicprism.com is the source of this one they reference. Extrapolating the recent past can be hazardous to your wealth. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it, as we know. But how to render them to actionable advice is less certain. Okay, let's scroll on down. George Santayana, purveyor of eminently quotable wise words by the wagon. Okay, let's get this to the point. Okay, hyperbole. So where to begin? So today's question, what does the past begin? How does it influence the future? How does one invest one's capital accordingly? These are today's questions. What follows with purpose and intent is an attempt to scratch out an answer. Where to begin? Many investment gurus in the early 1980s were predicting the future while projecting the past. After a decade of raging price inflation, the popular dogma was to pack one's portfolio with gold coins, fine art, and antiques. This was the proven surefire way to preserve hard-earned wealth. The United States, remember, was just a year or two away from going full Weimar Republic. The dollar was going to quickly turn into hyperinflationary ash, and everyone just knew it. You could darn near count down the days. I don't know. After that whole the late 70s were pretty brutal. I remember some of that a little bit. But conventional wisdom when it comes to the economy, markets, and investing usually leads to trouble. While everyone is busy watching the status quo unfold like a Swiss watch-like precision, the conditions that first brought this state of affairs to fruit subtly changes, yet almost no one takes notice. In the late 70s, Gary Shilling had a hunch. Rather than the consensus view that inflation would persist forever, Shilling suspected that the U.S. was entering a long-term era of lower and lower rates of price of inflation and an equally long-term decline in interest rates. Under this backdrop, traditional inflation hedges would be disastrous. Shilling had the conviction and warning to warn investors, wrote about a book published in the 80s. Is inflation ending? Are you ready? So that was a book written in the early 80s. Is inflation ending? Are you ready? The book's sales were a flop. No one save a handful of individuals could actually fathom that price inflation was dissipating. But the book's forecasting was right on the money. There's a 30-year Treasury bond yield graph, 1942 to present day. At the height of the 70s inflation scare, a great time to buy bonds had arrived. In September of 1981, 20-year Treasury note yields peaked at 15.32%. After that, they commenced a 35-year decline that likely ended in July of 2016 at 1.5%. Shilling, in addition to this book, also put his money behind. So it's talking about this guy. So Shilling achieved financial independence through aggressive investment in the long bond. Shilling's big forecast and financial windfalls were recounted in a book, Just One Thing. Interesting. Let's get to the point here. So here it is. Is inflation beginning and are you ready? So Shilling's call and capital deployment into long-term decline in interest rates starting in the 80s is remarkable. What is also remarkable is Shilling's ability to successful ride on this trend for the long, and other big investors bailed out. Come on. What's the point here? Bill Gross, long bond strategies. Elm Arian, yada yada. Trying to get to the point here. So here's a Bloomberg article that Shilling has written in. So his continued propensity for predicting turns in the economy is going on record again. In a recent Bloomberg article, Shilling said the following: I first suggested the U.S. economy was headed toward a recession more than a year ago, and now others are forecasting the same. I give business downturn starting this year a 2/3 probability. The recessionary indicators are numerous. Tighter monetary policy that the central bank now worries it may have overdone, the near inversion in the treasury yield curve, swoon in stocks in the end of last year, weaker housing activity, soft consumer spending, the tiny 20,000 increase in payrolls. Then there are effects of deteriorating European economies and accelerating growth in China, as well as President Trump's ongoing trade war. So how Shilling derived a 2/3 probability of a business downturn starting this year is a question of methodology. He put the probability of a business downturn starting with this year to 3/3 or 100%, but this is what comes after, which you should keep a watchful eye on. Goodness, this is a long way to get to the point. I'm having a hard time following. The conventional wisdom is that a weakening economy ensures more stimulative juice from the Fed, made up money. Without question, as demonstrated by the Fed's decision this week to hold rates steady, the Fed can be counted on to comply. But when days darker than the darkest days of a decade ago arrive, and the Fed comes to the rescue, which it can't, and when it gets that bad, when the Fed comes to the rescue with helicopter money drops, something unexpected will happen. Rather than bond yields falling and stock prices rising, the opposite will happen. Stock prices will fall and interest rates will rise along with consumer prices. So again, are you ready for inflation to begin? These questions may sound absurd today, but tomorrow their answers will be obvious. Having a gold coin or two in hand when tomorrow arrives will be of critical importance. There you go, Tommy boy, you're set. You got a gold coin or two. But this is the big concern. So this is a graph of the money supply using the classical definition of inflation as an increase in the money supply. And it's happened long ago based upon, so if you look at the, I can't read the dates at the bottom. This is like 2009, this shaded area is the last recession up into 2008, 2009. And the money supply has increased dramatically since. That would be an inflationary monetary system for sure. And that's real money, not to be confused with all the fake money that's out there that is coupled on top of this. Goldandsilver.com does a good job of tracking the different types of what they call money in the money supply, where they have the digital money, others, and then the real money supply, which is what this is a graph of, the actual printed version. And they have a link to a next article on urging retirees to get out of cash. Tommy Boy is way ahead of this game. I don't know that I actually, there was no conclusion to this. I guess we could go to the our original article by this gentleman that they're referring to on Economic Prism. But are you ready is the question, and Tommy Boy would say that he's way ahead of this by having a gold coin or two in hand will be critical, essentially. But it's definitely, the warning signs are all out there between the real money supply, the bond yield curve inversion, the staggering stock market, reduced housing sales, job market, all those things. As the Gregory Mannarino video puts it from the last couple he's done, if you go check out his one from yesterday included, they basically, once they got through the 08 problem, they hyperinflated another bubble. What we've been in has not been a true recovery. It has been a bubble of what you would call when they saved the banks, essentially, because they didn't allow the system to purge itself of all the bad debt and the bad, I guess you would say, bad bets that the banks in particular had in the system. They saved the banks, which made it bad investment, and all that bad investment hasn't been cleared out of the system, and it's only been hyperinflated upward since then, which has caused the bubble we're in now, which is full of more bad investment and not real wealth or real economic activity. And that when that bursts, the problem is last time we rescued the banks, who rescued the banks? Well, the central banks did. Now the central banks are filled with trillions and trillions of dollars of bad malinvestment. It's not just the satellite banks anymore. So who's going to rescue the central bank? And that is the big kahuna. Who talked about this in a video? There was somebody talking about this in a video yesterday. And that was the big point of contention. Who was talking about that? Dadgummit. But it's not the International Bank of Settlements. There's a different name of it. Or is it the International Bank of Settlements? I think and a couple of the silver channels are talking about it, silver and gold channels. We're talking about that. And if that come to the rescue, one, and will it? I guess was the supposition of that problem. And again, like I was talking about Friday, either way it happens, either the economic problems cause wars or wars cause the economic problems. It's just going to be a self-licking ice cream cone feeding off each other at some point, because all this economic expansion is ceasing because it's been fake, and the banks seeking out inflation are going to try to find some way to eat up debt, and war is the best way to eat debt, for lack of a better way to describe it. It's like dead weight loss. It's like trying to think of a better way to explain it. But basically, it creates more debt without creating actual real productive activity. And the system we're in thrives off not real stuff. It thrives off debt, and war, where you have things produced and then destroyed, is the best system of debt that we have gotten into. And that's why the essentially is like our best export is war. And that goes all around the globe. Everybody invests in warfare much more so than real productive activity, because they're all invested in debt. It's tragic when you think about it, but really put some thought into that. You'll find some stuff on the YouTube and other places on the internet about it. But the debt warfare and the productivity of debt is our problem. Let me check in on the side chat. I've neglected here. Christina's got lots of comments. I can't catch up to all that. Third options like fine cured bacon. Fine cured bacon. Oh, just cleaned his George Foreman grill. Stan says bias is a key factor in dividing the populace. They've been using our biases against us in racially motivated narratives. Right, Stan? And like I've been talking about for the longest time, the only thing the system has left is dividing the people so that people can't unite against the system. Somebody asked the other day what false flag attack was next, or what would they do, another 9/11 or this and that and the other thing. And it's like, aren't these small events really feeding into their narrative better than any large event could? Because a large event was meant to unite the people against an outside enemy. These smaller events divide the people, and they're using those to much better effect to get people to point fingers at each other. It's all those gun grabbers. It's all the gun grabbers versus all the gun lovers, whatever. The whites versus everybody else. People of color against all the white people. Yada, yada, yada. All those divisionary tactics are best suited to support the central governments. They're the ones that benefit from all that division. But bias is the key factor dividing the population. The Christina says the Gov does not care if you're Irish, Muslim, or purple. They want control and longevity, right? And their longevity, though, is very limited. But like I've said for years now, the key thing to watch and the key thing to be concerned about is, as the economic system deteriorates, as our economic situation deteriorates, the police state will rise. This police state will grow. And is that not happening? Look at the state of police forces in 2007 compared to now. When we had the G10 or whatever it was in Seattle that time, where they really rolled out a lot of the crowd control techniques and kind of really put it out there. And there was also in Pittsburgh too, the G20 summit or whatever. That's just a small taste of what's happened these last 10 years. And it's just gotten worse nationwide. I mean, has it not? As a way to think about it. Carly Bruce has joined us. Good morning. How are you? From Kansas. Hopefully those floods did not affect you too bad. I know it's co-located with Nebraska, but Nebraska seemed to take the brunt of those issues. What's Fort McMurray? I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. Gold is a rich man's metal, says Matt. Keep going with silver. No doubt. I'm in the same boat as you, Matt. Definitely double down on the silver. The hope and the consensus seems to be that everybody expects silver to be dragged with gold upward when it does come, and that silver will have a lot more room to move. I mean, it's at literally historical lows in relationship to gold. When you look at it, it's about an 85-to-1 ratio, which is just insanely. Looking at the numbers, mad. It's madness. That silver, a commodity which is used almost daily, or it is used daily, in thousands of different types of devices and objects and materials, and gold, which has a very limited use, primarily as money, but also in other jewelry forms too. But silver is far more used, but yet has been beaten down by the system, in my supposition, that it's got a lot of room to move. And not only that, but biggest thing is both of them, and not only gold and silver, palladium, platinum, all the real hard physical items are going to preserve your wealth, preserve your what I like to call representation of your labor. It is what you have worked to earn, and you hope to preserve that in the future. And those are the ways to do that. Property and land can be, but they're kind of overvalued right now. If you really look at it, the cost that it takes to get property is a little extreme, although you can't replace it, and it is renewable, and you can use that land to great effect. So that's the upside, is you can get land and produce off of it. So there is that. It does have that going for it. And it can also be a preserver of wealth, but it's really expensive at this time. So real things are more important than the expendable fake digital dollars, or as like Chris Dwayne calls it, digital illusions of wealth. Or as was it Benjamin Franklin that said it? Or maybe it was Thomas Jefferson. Dang, the quote just went out my brain. Gold and silver is real money. Everything else is debt. Something like that. Anyway, I messed that up, I'm pretty sure. Silver and coffee. Coffee's an expendable asset, but it's valuable. It's renewable if you can grow your own coffee beans, but it has limited value. It's not going to preserve very long. It's not durable, but it does have value, right? Has Rooster checked in with us? Christina says, get the 1/4 ounce Gaudians gold. Tyler just burnt your tongue. Burning your tongue is what the SHTF they don't warn you about. Is that your joke? Yes, Dan, licking the stove's not an ideal, licking the windows is bad enough. And catch up here on the side chat. Oh, let me hold on. I just missed something. Who said Greg? Oh man, you guys are chatting it up in there, and I'm missing it all. You guys are gonna be mad. I'm so far behind. Oh yeah, Tommy Boy watched Greg's video. Got you thinking about owning your own bank, so I did. Right, Tommy Boy. That's good policy. And really, there's this British channel I came on to recently called Backwoods Stacking, I think's the name of it. Backwoods, what is his name? So I can pull up the name just so I get it right if you want to go check it out. but basically they're Brits, and they have formed a basically buyers club. They have a bunch of people that pitch in and buy precious metals as a group. And they were talking about Brexit big time because of all the import duties and stuff they were concerned about being imposed if they do buy silver and gold. So they've been buying, I guess you'd say, a little heavy before the Brexit day, so they don't have to pay those import fees, taxes, and et cetera, tariffs, whatever you want to call them. Let me check the name real quick. Backcountry. That's not okay. Now I'm confused myself. Oh, wait. You know what? I think I'm actually, I don't think I'm actually subscribed. It doesn't look like. I just have seen a bunch of their videos, it appears. Let's see if I can find a link to one of their videos. But they had formed a Silver's Buyers Club, and that got me to thinking, like, yeah, that's a good idea. If at this point you don't have anybody that's also concerned about buying gold and silver, probably should have more friends like that. And if you all pitched in together, even if you're just pitching in to get a roll each month or something and dividing it up, you're still saving on your premiums that you pay out there on your gold and silver. Let me see if I can find his name. I actually wasn't subscribed. I didn't realize that. Where you could just want to give him a proper credit. I hate mentioning channels and not giving you a chance to go look at it yourself. Yeah, man. Failing is not a good option. Stan is waiting for the U.S. to annex Canada. Excuse me. I'm not sure why the U.S. would want to annex Canada, but I think we had our opportunity in 1812, and that all fell apart. So, yeah, Bank of International Settlements, right, is the big all do all be all. But does the Bank of International Settlements have the ability to save everybody when all the central banks fall apart? Especially if it's from the U.S. side. Christina said, if I made a currency, I'd back it with corn. How long does corn last? You know, corn's only, 10 years maybe if you store it right. That's why metals are money, because they have durability. There's been commodities used in the past, sugar, salt, all those things, and salt lasts forever as long as you store it, but it's still a commodity. That's why metals took over as real money, because of their durability. But other forms of backyard bullion, that's the name of it. Backyard bullion. There's a link to one of the videos I watched. Yeah, they have a video they made recently, yesterday. Wait. Yeah, that was last year. I saw one of their videos from last year. They talk about buying silver in 2018 being a bad idea as a thought process. So Backyard Bullion, yeah, that's a British channel that I caught on to and found interesting. They're getting together to purchase so they save on premiums and everything else. And plus, just working together. The Canadians would complain too much if we annexed them. We can leave Quebec out, says Stan. They complain too much. Yeah, I would say third. If you can get a little bit of gold, it's always good to have, because it is a concentrated form of wealth. Because silver gets heavy, especially at the current ratio. When you consider the monetary value, it takes 85 ounces of silver to make 1 ounce of gold right now. If you could concentrate your wealth into 1 ounce gold coin, that condenses down to a smaller thing you have to carry around for the future. But if you're talking about upside potential, yes, silver's seems to be the way to go because it can move fast and produce a lot. But the silver also gives you the visibility and that you have a smaller return to make change, basically. So you can exchange for small things. If you got an ounce of gold, that's going to be so valuable that, what are you buying, an acre of land with it? It's going to take a lot. You're not buying eggs at the store with an ounce of gold, and expecting to get change, right? Yeah, junk silver, your constitutional silver is always a good go-to. Your quarters and dimes, half dollars are always good because they are money itself and easily recognizable. Christina, husband made a torch with a cast silver skulls. Like put all the skulls together to make a torch, or like melted them all down and made a torch? Tyler still watched Alex Jones when the G10 was going on. Yeah, that was up in Seattle, right? And that was a long time ago, but look how, now that's expected. Now the military police response is like the norm. When at the time it should have alarmed everybody, but everybody figured they're just a bunch of left-wing eco-terrorists. Nobody cared. But it's been imposed upon everybody. Tyler read something interesting. Apparently the code, I'm 8 minutes behind. I got to catch up. Apparently the code, which makes it a crime to deface American currency, specifically mentions debt notes. So my understanding is that precious metal coins aren't. So you're talking about constitutional silver, right, Tyler? The old dimes, quarters, nickels, etc. Real money. I think you're correct, because I think you can take the silver and do whatever you want with it, the metals. But yeah, they made that law against destruction of debt notes, because if you destroy debt notes, you're basically working against the system. You're basically destroying the system from within. Because if you got enough dollar bills, if you were able to take, 50% of the dollar bills that are in banks and destroy them, you have caused a crisis in the country. Literally, you're taking around what you hear the term all the time, liquidity. If you just took that liquidity out of the system to where there can't be the money circulating in the system, that's a severe drain. So that's definitely a central bank driven law, I guess you'd say, for sure. Yeah, fresh coffee beans are good. That's good to store up if you got your own, especially if you got your own roaster and grinder for the future. It's a good way to save on your coffee costs too. Stan says they're starting a constitutional convention in Kanadistan to actually get our sovereignty. Is that right? Matt recommends JM Bullion. Yes, JM's a good source of purchasing. Definitely check out several of the sites have an initial, if you're just getting into it, a 10 ounce. You can get 10 ounces of silver for spot price with no premium, and it'll be free shipping too. Definitely check out all those sites to get that, like as your first initial installment, I guess you'd say. Get up on that deal. And that gives you your 10 ounce base stack, and then you can go with the diversity of the different types of gold and silver that you can get after that. Christina says you can't, what the law means is defacing means you can't change the value. You can destroy it, eat it, but you're not allowed to change the value. Yeah, I think there's a destruction clause implication there too. I don't think you can, if you destroy Federal Reserve notes, I think that's included in there. Oh, Tommy Boy can just about buy a brand new Jeep. Nice. All right, looks like I've caught up there. Oh, Matt, you're ordering 10 ounces, 10 ounces right now, right? Right on. Yeah, if you haven't ordered since it was 21, you probably they didn't have the 10-ounce deals, I don't think, back then. Yeah, JM Bullion, Provident, several others have a 10-ounce stack you can buy at spot, which spot today is like 1543 or something. If you go there, you can get so you can get a roll of 10 ounces of silver at spot for a one-time purchase from all of them. I'm still trying to figure out a way to manipulate other people into getting me one delivered to their address, and we could have one person for each of the family. But then I might convince the person I'm talking to buy their own, and then I'd be out of luck. But that's a good way to start off a quick stack, and plus you're getting to that spot, and you're just stacking ounces, you know. So check that out if you haven't yet. And they're hard to find. They're hard to find the link to those deals too, because I had to search. JM kind of has it up front where you can get to it, but Provident and the others, you have to do a little more searching, or you have to get a specific link to it to get to those deals. Quasar Nugs has joined us. eBay has some good deals on silver. And the thing about eBay too is they have the eBay bucks. A lot of silver channels will go through and talk about the different deals you can get on eBay using your eBucks. Lots of silver channels go that so that they can buy silver. They show the different ways you can buy certain silver deals below spot price. Every week they go through some different deal, and they'll break that down to how to do that. Definitely something to check out. I think Salvate Metal does that. Silver Bull. Who's the other guy that goes through that? Mr. Vegeta, he breaks that down. eBay bucks a lot. Yeah, those guys do a lot of that eBay shopping for silver for deals, and then using those eBucks to bring your price point down actually to below spot price, which is amazing. I haven't been able to take advantage of that, but they find all the good deals and do videos on that regularly to get everybody in the know. Carrie Bruce is with us. I'm sorry. Have a good day, Carrie. Thanks for checking in. I'm almost finished my second cup, and I'm still not awake. No Stress Mike did a video, watched for the 3%. We're going to check that out a little later. I have to save that one up and see what that's about. See if he's talking about the 3% or what 3% he's talking about. But Mike did a video, watch for the 3%. He just dropped it, it looks like. So anything else going off in anybody else's area of opportunity, area of operation? Matt's in the chat, so I know he's not at the border, but I imagine he's got operations going at some point in time in the future. So since Rooster hasn't checked in with us, I'll go ahead and cover this article out of San Francisco last night. The incident of a gun-free zone shooting once again. Amazing as that might sound, but 1 killed, 3 wounded in shooting in San Francisco. Says Fillmore Street late Saturday. I was when I asked Rooster where Fillmore Street was in relationship to all the other districts. Like, what kind of area is that? Is that like a higher class area, low class, the slums? Like, or of course, the way it sounds, all of San Francisco is a slum lately, but took place near Edie Street. So Fillmore Street or Edie Street, which was it? Probably an intersection. 1 person killed, 3 wounded. reports of the shooting. Amateur video shows emergency vehicles at the scene. They arrived around 8:40 p.m. One of the victims were pronounced dead on the scene. They really don't get into what caused it, if it was a drug deal gone bad or what. The reports are the suspect fled in a black Cadillac and may be armed. Sounds like a drug deal gone bad now that I read that. Here's some of the pictures. This is in the Daily Mail. I think this should be in your description box below. There should be a link to this. I think I got in on that. Got that down there. There's your Fillmore Street and Edie Street intersection where the shooting took place. And they're asking for more information on the suspect if you know. So it's pretty short and sweet there. Not much to discuss, but if Rooster had more info for us, see what he thought about what it could have potentially been. Christina, have a good day. Thanks for checking in. Tyler asked, do most places not have a coin store where you can buy things for just a little over spot? Seems like I can buy it locally for cheaper. Cheaper than you often hear people quote. Well, Tyler, it kind of depends. I think out west, our local coin stores are a lot more robust, I think, than what's back east. I think there's a little bit better supply and demand out here equation for us. I think it, too, depends on what you're buying. Like, we can get pretty cheap constitutional silver out here at my local coin shop, but when I go to buy a American Eagle or something like that, I get a better deal by going to online, because at least the one I've found so far, there's not been like I talked about in one of my videos a couple of weeks ago, Tyler, was I did find some deals in those generic rounds, depending on what you're looking for. It just depends on what you're trying to buy, because I found a pretty good deal on those silver shield rounds that the coin store had that were going for much cheaper than what I could find online, because they were the older versions that somebody had brought in. It's like, well, if you're going to finish off your collection, it's a good way to find stuff like that in particular. But I think it just depends on the coin store. When your coin people aren't out of town at a convention. Matt's on the border next weekend, 3 days in the bush. Right on. Matt says pawn shops will take silver in trade, but nowhere else. As in, you can buy things with silver, like you can trade in for like that guitar on the wall or whatever. They'll take silver. That's interesting. It's good to know those places. People talk about bartering with gold and silver in the collapse or in the SHTF or whatever. And really, I think, especially your local coin store, and here in Nevada in particular, there's lots of places that kind of understand silver and recognize it. Those are going to be your places, centers of trade. They could develop into that because they understand it, and they can be the mediator for trade, because they can verify the value and the quality of what's being traded as far as silver and gold wise with the person that's trading with other commodities. They can be the place that verifies that for them, because so many people when they say how would you barter with it, because they don't trust it, because they don't understand it, well, that's the places these central locations, these coin stores and pawn shops, places that currently understand silver, can be used in the future as the mediators of trade, I guess, to be like basically like the banks now. They would be the ones that verify and certify value and quality and original currency or whatever. Tyler says, true about regional differences. You're not far from Sunshine Mending. Oh, is that right? Sunshine Mending is up there? Is that right? I didn't know that. Yeah, the West is still full of silver bugs and gold bugs. That's one characteristic it's got going for it. People still out gold panning and gold mining pretty much on the regular out here. Much more so, I would say, than east of Denver, for sure. There's always still small startups and everything on the hillsides around here. People going and panning in the river or whatever. All right, folks. Thanks for joining this morning. It's been a good one. We'll leave you with this image. It's probably a pretty good what's the word? Pretty good statement. A good way to and empower your citizens, I guess. Oh, let's get Cat back up there. Czech government tells its citizens how to fight terrorists. Shoot them yourselves. Hey, you can't argue with that logic, right? So with the orders and directives of the Czech government, that's the way you do it. Shoot them in the face, as I like to call it. I like to say it. It's the only way to stop the bad guys. It's the best way. And the Czech government seems to be figuring this out, and hopefully other places do as well. Apparently that's a headline quoted from January of 2017, too, based upon the date up there on that image. But can't argue with that. So with that, folks, have a good weekend. Enjoy your week. Hopefully it starts off well for you. Thanks for checking in. Hope you enjoyed the chat. Thanks for the conversation. Matt asked the questions, what do you say about copper prepping? Would copper rounds actually somewhat like a dollar bill and silver like a 20? Do you think it's worth getting into copper coins? And that's been something discussed for a long time. That's a good question. I would say I have gotten a little bit of copper rounds, kind of for the affordability of it. I've completed some of my complimentary silver round collection, especially the Zombucks. I got the copper complement with it. So that was more to complete a collection, but that copper is there to have for use as needed, I guess. It's not a play on the value of copper at all, but copper can always be used for something. If I need a conductor and I don't want to use silver, I've got copper, right? Copper being melted down and having multiple uses. When, industrial abilities wane, you might have the need to have some form of copper, conductor or otherwise, and you have the ability to make that. So I guess, you could use it monetarily in the future as well, and it could be used in that fashion like you mentioned. But I wouldn't go, I don't know. I think using constitutional dimes and smaller currencies like that is more practical in the long term, but with a limited copper exposure, maybe is the way I would go about it. I do I save all the pre-82 pennies. Quasar talks about he's got 10 pounds of copper pennies. I've been saving up the 1982 and before pennies for quite a while. I've basically got a tall plastic cup full of those because of the copper content. But copper rounds, I have a limited amount, more so to complement the silver round they go with than the thought of using them monetarily. But that's always possible in the future. You never know. So that's the way I approach it. It's a good concept, though. It could be used as, just like pennies or copper now. in the future, a copper round could be, you know, like you're saying, a lower value than a more valuable silver round. But then you've got your silver dimes and other things you can use for that change as well. And really, you know, your 1982 and your pre-82 copper pennies are really your easily saved, you know, copper right now. Anybody can get into saving copper like that. You don't have to go out and buy a round or anything. How do you make change for an ounce of silver? Maybe copper pennies. Well, in the exchange, in the future too, depending on how things are, the thing to remember is you can always either melt down your metals and pour it into smaller quantities, or actually break them off. And this was done in the past. And there's several companies that actually make silver bars and things that are meant to be broken. So they're broken off into quarter ounce fragments or etc. And they're still weighted by that side of the coin. But you can actually, you know, cut, I guess you'd say, your silver bar or coin in half, and it's still an ounce of silver is an ounce of silver, right? Or a half ounce or a quarter ounce. You know, if they weigh it, you know, if it still maintains the weight and it's still got that stamp on where it matches up, you know, it's something to think about, is that you can still fractionalize a full ounce round. It's difficult. It would take effort, but if you needed to do it, you can still make change just using your piece of silver that you have and cutting it up, or melting it down and pouring smaller pieces. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, right, Quasar. I didn't. It's kind of one of those things I got away from years ago. I mean, I did some silver stuff when I first started the channel, when I was just getting into it, and you know, you make that circular movement. You know, I did that video last fall about my magic box, basically my SHTF stash of things that I would grab when I would hit the road. But and somebody was talking about yesterday. I mean, I still follow a lot of silver channels, and I've kind of gotten back into it since this price point has been down and the $16 lower range for a while. I've been getting more into it because obviously it's more affordable and more something you can get involved in, and you know, you want to stack up when you can, right? But I've been following a lot more silver channels lately, and somebody was talking yesterday about, I think it may have been Backyard Bullion, about, actually, I was watching their video that was talking about you can't bug out with it. I'm like, well, it's just like everything else. You're not going to be able to bug out with everything you have, but you should be able to bug out with a portion of your silver and gold. And I referenced my video of the magic box there. It's like, well, I have a specific box that's specifically about bugging out. That's the box that goes. That doesn't mean everything's going with me. Just like you're probably not going to be able to bug out with all your guns. You're not going to be able to bug out with all your food preps. You're not going to be able to, if you're having to bug out, you know. But you need to have identified what you are going to take and have it, I think, separated in some form, so that you not only have a variety of your needs met, but you have a variety of your preps with you as well. So that goes with water, food, medical supplies, and everything else. I mean, you're probably going to load up a lot more of that in that little, you know, I guess that little safe, that little hand safe that I had in that video. You know, it was only that big, but that's like, shoot, I don't know, how much is that? How quick is my math? My math isn't very quick. Let me divide. That thing is like, goodness, my math is terrible is what it is. What is it? 16 ounces a pound, right? That's like 15 pounds. Close enough. It's like 15, that thing weighs like 15 pounds, but that's not all of that. And you're going to have to take ammo and everything else. I'm not going to be able to take all my ammo if I did have to bug out, you know. Got to make room for all the people and everything else, right? But yeah, silver's popular, Quasar. It's one of those things like we talked about in that one video. you run out of room to store food and water at some point, and the value of them is such that it's going to be more valuable in the future probably, but you only have so much room to put water containers, and water is relatively cheap, whereas I can put a lot of value in a 1 ounce round of silver and it doesn't take up much room. That's the whole point of money. It's a condensed form of wealth. Like we talked about, even gold's even more condensed. When you run out of room for preps, and you run out of places to store things, silver and gold are really the logical conclusion, I think, for any prepper. Because like they say, once you've met your needs, silver and gold are the best way to store your wealth for the future that you can hold in your hand. If you want to speculate and get in the markets and try to increase your wealth, because in the paper markets and stock markets, 401ks, you can do that. You're speculating. It's essentially going to the casino because somebody else is holding the value of your wealth. But if you get gold and silver, you hold it, you own it, you have access to it. You don't have access to Wall Street and those markets. And especially when you go to pull stuff out, Uncle Sam is going to take his share, his pound of flesh, really his 20 pounds of flesh nowadays, out of that before you get a hold of it. So that's kind of, is that my 20-second elevator speech on gold and silver? Yeah, we could do a whole chat about it, I guess, Quasar, about gold and silver for sure. You sold your 60 pounds of pennies. Sold over one per to make me happy. Tyler's going to order 1 gram molds. There are breakable bars, right? Yeah, they're breakable bars, exactly. You can get a graphite mold with nylon, multiple 1 gram molds in it. Yeah, there's a lot of silver channels I've noticed that have gotten into silver pouring, and I'm only assuming that's because the price is so low that you can get low cost silver, pour it, make your own design, and they resell it for at a premium, but it's a hand poured mold with a certain design on it or whatever. Lots of channels have gotten into that. I was surprised when I started looking around at the silver channels these days, and like every week, these channels are doing a pour video where they're pouring a couple ounces of a bar or something that they've made. They've custom made a mold. How much do those molds cost, Tyler? I was wondering about that. I was like, man, I'd like to make my own mold. I don't know if I'm willing to melt down any silver, but it'd be cool to have your own design. But the problem you run into, that's really almost like a novelty piece, because I think, the problem you're going to come into with that is recognizability. People are going to be looking at that like, is that legit? Like, seriously? You expect me to trade you with that? So how would that be tested and confirmed in the future? You have to go through the acid test and weight and everything else. Then there's electronic means that they have those electronic testers that a coin shop may have, but that's just kind of a hassle. But if you got something that's easily marked, like a government coin or something, people are more likely to trade with you for that. Quasar says, don't know if you hit on it, but the mint ran out of silver rounds and had to mint more. They limited their mintage. I did see that of Eagles, but that was at the 2018. The 2019, I don't think has hit that problem yet. It's been well documented. We talked about this years ago. The U.S. Mint is not bound to U.S. production anymore. The U.S. Mint used to be limited only to U.S. silver, and that's what drove, to what has been driving prices down too, is some of these government shenanigans. So now the U.S. Mint imports silver from other countries, so that creates more competition, which lowers prices in the silver market as well. So they bring in a lot of silver from overseas to print rounds. I don't know if Silver Eagles will be going up soon. Maybe the premium might go up. But I think that was only the 2018 version, Quasar. I don't think it's affected the 2019 yet. And Tyler, EDC is a few ounces, right? Indeed. I hadn't even talked about that. Yeah, I carry a couple of the the old Strategic National Stockpile rounds. I got a couple of those and a little bag of dimes. It's, you know, you never know. We all need food, med, ammo, and money, right? More food than you can carry, right, Quasar? Yeah, more food than you can carry for sure. Yeah, when I think about my magic box and how much money, how much food that represents in the future, it's a comparison, you know. If you had, especially if you had to leave. If the president comes on TV and says, sorry, kids, we had to print 50% more dollars to pay China off and avoid war, right? It only takes one event like that to really make things go haywire. Well, and just think if China stopped buying bonds, which is essentially kind of that same scenario, just kind of reversed. China makes the decision. Because really, we have been punishing China. I shouldn't say we, I should say the central bank has been punishing China by driving these interest rates so low, which hurts the value of China's bonds that they have invested in America. Essentially, Chinese have been invested in America for like 20 years. The graphite molds aren't cheap. Oh, is that right? Some of them are engraving it themselves. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know how they did that mold. Are they 3D printing these molds with graphite? Is that what it is? A 3D printed mold, or is it some other form? I've seen people 3D print different types of molds for other purposes, but I didn't know if they could do it for pouring silver because it's so hot. Oh, Quasar says, article on 2019, February 25th, U.S. Mint is out of silver eagles. Ah, I missed that. They probably just ran out of blanks. They're probably going to – well, and that's another thing that the law in 2010, Obama, when he signed that I guess it was a rule. It wasn't really a law. They changed the regulation where used to the Mint had to mint – the U.S. Mint had to mint as many U.S. Eagles as were demanded. They had to put out whatever the demand was. And when they made that rule in 2010, it took us off of that rule. So the Mint no longer had to meet demand. You know who just did this video? Drutter. Drutter. I don't know how you say it. He's a Canadian from Vancouver. I've been following him for years. He did silver for the longest time. He fell off the net, personal issues, and he's been coming back lately. But he just did a video about some of those issues and that takes off the value of silver too. When the Mint no longer had to meet the demand of silver eagles, really changed the game there too. But now they don't have to meet the demand anymore, and so they just print what they want. And he was tracking the because even Mike Maloney got caught on to Drutter years ago, because Drutter had been following what he called the divergence back in 2013, 2014 maybe, where the demand and supply were diverging from each other. He tracked where they were following each other, like most commodities, supply and demand follow each other. And then they started diverging at a point, and he was tracking that divergence of demand versus supply. And it was quite interesting. And Mike Maloney called a hold of that and even called it the Drutter divergence. And that had to be 2014, if not 13. And then Drutter came back out again. I saw his most recent video yesterday of talking about that divergence again lately, where demand was so high back in like 2016, was way outpacing supply. And now demand is really low compared to supply, or they're more in line, I guess you would say, which is interesting considering the value and price of silver. Like, when's this going to bounce back up? Because people that have been on silver are really in on silver now because of the value. But in the populace, common people's mind frame, I guess they're just not back onto it yet. Wow, that was a long 20-minute divergence on silver when I said I was going to shut this down. Tyler says, I think you get the blank and then use a Dremel. They Dremel out those designs themselves? Wow. Wow, I didn't know they. Wow, that's tedious. Some of those designs are pretty cool. There's actually a new channel I just found that's local to here, right here in Northern Nevada, that does his own molding. I thought that was pretty cool. VC Coins Nevada is the name of the channel. He molds coins or molds silver right here nearby. Like an idea of a professional mold, weight and engraved. You'll be melting junk silver and casting bullets in plaster. That's always an option. That's always the option, right? It's all silver bullets are always the ultimate store, right? Yeah, Quasar, you might be right about that. The vampires have to have the silver bullet. No doubt. Yeah, that might be the only thing that does it. Puts us out of her misery. Indeed. All right, folks, I really got a jet. Thanks for the chat. Thanks for the info. Do go check out Mike. I'm going to go check this out next. Well, if it comes up, what's going on? There it is. I'm going to check out No Stress Mike. He says, watch for the 3%. That might be an interesting video. So I'm going to check that out. If you're not subscribed to Mike, he's an older gentleman passing on his knowledge and information while he still can. He's been kind of interesting to follow over the years. He does a lot of world travels and stuff. So have a good day. Thanks for checking in. Go out, live free.